Today we're tearing down something that is probably sitting in your wallet right this second. It's just a tiny piece of plastic, but man, it has the absolute power to dictate your entire financial future. We're talking, of course, about credit cards. But instead of just throwing a bunch of dry math at you right out of the gate, let's actually put ourselves directly in the shoes of an everyday spender. We're going to walk through the story of how ridiculously easy it is to fall into this invisible trap, and more importantly, how you can actually shift your habits to recover and break out of it.
So, our story starts. Well, it starts really quietly. You're just out living your life, having a good time, and you swipe your card. Ding! Your phone lights up with a $47 charge for a nice lunch out with friends. I mean, it's just lunch, right? You literally don't even blink.
Then, the very next day, another notification pops up. Just 19 bucks. Maybe you topped off your gas tank, grabbed some quick takeout, or, oh, it's that automatic charge for that streaming service you completely forgot you even had. You know, the one you signed up for just to watch that single show.
And then, of course, comes the classic late-night scrolling session. Boom, an $86 online purchase at midnight because your sleep-deprived brain convinced you it was, quote-unquote, only a few bucks. Now, here is the really fascinating part about this stage of the trap. None of these purchases feel like a big deal at the time. They are so small they barely even register on your radar as actual financial decisions. But see, that is exactly how the trap snaps shut. The average person's downfall isn't marching into a luxury store and buying some massively expensive item they clearly can't afford. No, the real danger here is blowing hundreds of dollars without actually remembering where on earth it went. And why does this happen? Simply because the money doesn't actually leave your bank account today. You swipe, you get the dopamine hit of your new stuff, and the pain of actually paying for it is completely delayed. And let me tell you, credit card companies absolutely love this.
To truly understand this trap, we have to completely reframe how we look at the card itself. The second our shopper starts treating that piece of plastic like it's extra cash, the math completely turns against them. Listen, a credit card is not extra money. It is borrowed money. And borrowed money always comes with rules. If you ignore those monthly statements, the problem stays totally invisible until, suddenly, it's not.
Section 1. The math of borrowing and the minimum payment cycle.
So here's the climax of falling into the trap. Our shopper finally opens their monthly statement. The balance stares back at them. $4,200. Now, a number that high doesn't feel real or dangerous when you're just spending 19 bucks at a time. But then they look down and see the minimum payment, $95. Well, hey, 95 bucks sounds totally manageable, right? So they pay it. But the next month, they check again. And the balance has barely even moved, so they pay it again and again. Months, maybe even years roll by. Literally thousands of dollars just vanish into thin air as interest, all because they only ever paid the minimum.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates the brutal, relentless math of carrying a balance. This is especially true if you're trying to do all the right things in other areas of your life. Let's say our person has some cash invested, earning a pretty optimistic 8% return. Awesome, right? But wait, they are also carrying credit card debt at a massive 25 or 28% APR. Listen, every single month, that debt is growing so much faster than those investments ever could. The numbers are moving, yeah, but they are moving in the exact wrong direction.
Section 2. The system always remembers. Credit scores and utilization. So, how exactly does this system remember? Well, a lot of people think a credit score is just this random, arbitrary number, but it's really not. It's a story about your habits. Take a look at this. If you've got a card with a $10,000 limit and you're carrying a $9,000 balance, you are telling the system a very different, much riskier story than if you were only using $1,500 on that exact same card. It is the exact same piece of plastic, but the signal you're blasting out to lenders is entirely different.
And the system does not forget. These warning signals, things like high utilization, late payments, or maxed out cards, they drag your credit score straight down. And when you have a low score, literally everything in life gets more expensive. Trying to get a car loan, renting an apartment, your insurance rates, and sometimes even job opportunities suddenly become way more difficult to secure. For our spender, who really just wanted a quick lunch and some late-night online shopping, this invisible trap has now messed with their entire livelihood. Okay, so how does our trapped spender actually fix this? How do they pull off the recovery and break this vicious cycle? Well, the very first step of their recovery requires a massive mindset shift when it comes to rewards. Look, we all love cash back, right? Travel points, airline miles, they're fantastic, but they turn into a super dangerous trap the second they start dictating your spending. Let's be real, nobody is actually saving money by spending cash they didn't need to spend in the first place just to chase a tiny 2% reward. The smartest users live by this rule. Rewards are a nice bonus, but they are never the reason you swipe.
Section 3. Tool versus Lifeline. Emergency spending.
To pull off a full recovery, our spender has to face a pretty harsh reality about emergencies. Because let's face it, emergencies are gonna happen. The transmission blows on your car, a random medical bill shows up in the mail, life just gets incredibly expensive sometimes. But if you throw every single unexpected expense straight onto a credit card without a rock-solid plan to pay it off, you are diving headfirst right back into that trap. One emergency turns into a balance. That balance turns into interest, and that interest morphs into long-term stress. You've just let a temporary problem spiral into a permanent cycle.
So to escape the cycle once and for all, our spender needs to take a page out of the Wealth Builders playbook. Wealth Builders use credit cards totally differently. Why? Because they already have cash reserves. We're talking 3 to 6 months of living expenses just sitting there in an emergency fund before the disaster even strikes. Because they have that buffer when life gets messy and expensive, their credit card is still just a convenient tool. It is absolutely never used as a lifeline. And that, right there, is the ultimate recovery strategy.
It really is wild when you look at the stark contrast here. You can have two totally different people starting out with the exact same piece of plastic. They get the exact same monthly statements delivered to their mailbox, but their daily repetitive habits send their financial futures in completely opposite directions. One person is literally spending their future income before they've even earned it. They're paying crazy interest and they are losing options. The other person, they use it purely for convenience, pay the whole thing off every single month, rake in the sweet rewards, and actually gain options. Over the years, that gap widens massively. And it's not because of luck, it is 100% because of habits.
Which brings us to the absolute core truth of this entire explainer. Credit cards are neither inherently good, nor are they inherently bad. They are, simply put, amplifiers. Think about it. Somewhere out there tonight, someone is opening up their very first credit card, super pumped about their new credit limit, and they probably think the only real danger is going out and buying a massive flat-screen TV. But the reality is so much more subtle. The card simply takes your existing financial habits and turns up the volume. It makes your good habits better and your bad habits significantly worse. Every single swipe pushes you just a little bit further down whichever path you're already on.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want you to reflect on the journey we just walked through. From those casual, totally innocent feeling $19 swipes, to the sudden realization of the minimum payment trap, all the way to the recovery of finally using the card as a tool rather than a desperately needed lifeline. Take a hard look at your own daily swipes and ask yourself, if your card is truly just an amplifier, what exact habits is it amplifying for you right now? What kind of financial future are those small, everyday decisions actually building?